Okay, evening everybody. We have a nice full room today and a nice full Zoom room as well. We are going to discuss tonight um, perhaps one of the most famous parts of the Haggadah. What's all that clicking noise? Who's clicking? I'm going to mute everybody because somebody's clicking is disturbing me. There we go. I think it was Goldie's clicking. Anyway, there we go. Right. So yes, we're going to talk about Mah Nishtana Halayla Hazeh. Okay. So we think of this first of all. We think of this, don't we, as the children's bit, right? Nothing could be further from the truth. This is the essence of the night, really. We think that it's a children's song that we sort of bolted onto the Seder, as it were, but it's not. This is actually a model for how the Seder is, is supposed to work. It is Goldie clicking, right? We've stopped her click. Before the Gemara.
From the Greeks.
Mishnah, very good.
From the
Yes.
Greeks.
Wasn't quite accurate that. You're right, Lionel. It's in the Gemara, but before the Gemara, it's in the Mishnah. Mishnah, where would you find it, you think? Psachim. Yes, that would be a good place to start, wouldn't it? Okay. Now, you might be surprised to find, I was surprised to find when I first learnt this many years ago, that this is discussed right at the end of Psachim. Daf Kuf Tet Zayin 116. So we have got to almost the end of the Masechet before we discuss Mah Nishtana, which is quite remarkable. I would have thought it would be much earlier on, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Anyway, it isn't.
Well,
This is pretty important. It's true, but it's pretty important. Anyway, it's in Mishnah. It's in Perek 10. It's in the 10th Perek. And the 10th Perek discusses Seder night, Leil HaSeder. The second Mishnah of the Perek Tet begins like this. Mazgu lo kos rishon. No, that's not what we want. That's the first cup. Sorry, Mishnah Dalad. Mazgu lo kos sheni. They pour out for him the second cup. What do you notice about that, first of all?
that the cup was empty
Yes, why do you think the cup was empty?
because he was drunk.
Because he's already made Kiddush, right? Kiddush was the first one. That was not what you meant to notice, Philip. Mazgu lo kos sheni. They poured out for him.
Yeah.
Why didn't he pour it himself?
Yeah, that's what I know.
Okay, that's the point I'm trying to make to you, okay? Don't say it as if I'm like some kind of idiot that you're meant to know these things. Not everybody knows these things, Lionel.
I didn't get what that was.
Mazgu lo. They poured out
Yes,
for him.
yeah.
It is a minhag on Leil HaSeder. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this minhag. Some of you may not be. That a person does not pour out his own wine on Leil HaSeder. Why not?
Nobody participating at the Seder, or only the Baal Seder?
Sign of freedom.
Sign of freedom. Everybody should not pour out their own wine. Somebody should pour out your wine for you. Why is that?
So why not a goy?
Why not a goy? Why do you think not a goy?
Because he wasn't there.
Because he can't pour out the wine, can he? No, but it's Stam Yenam, not Yain Nesach, but Stam Yenam.
Yeah, it's
Stam
not
Yenam.
Nesach.
Yain Nesach is
When he opened the bottle.
sacramental wine. No, sacramental, something completely different. We're not getting into that today.
Okay.
So Mazgu,
Can't drink such wine anyway.
that's Stam Yenam. It's not Yain Nesach. Yain Nesach, Stam Yenam.
Okay.
Their wine. I'll talk you to about it another time because I have some strong views on it. Mazgu lo poured out for him the second cup. So if you look at the second Mishnah, which is I started by mistake, it says Mazgu lo kos rishon. They poured out the first cup for him before Kiddush. If you go to a posh do, right, a really posh do, You have a Sarah Mashkim. You have a waiter that comes and pours your wine,
He
right?
has to be Jewish.
Of course he has to be Jewish. He's at a Seder night. What were you doing with having goyim
How
there?
can you have a Jew who's a butler on a Seder night?
For goodness sake. I'm pointing out to you that free people, posh free people, have their wine poured out for them. Right. So,
Not regular.
no, posh people, So when you're a free man on Seder night, we are demonstrating that we are free. It is one of the things we do. You're making this very difficult, Philip, as usual. One of the things we do to show that we are free is that we don't pour our own wine. We wait for somebody else to come and pour it for us. So I might pour for you,
And then I'll pour for
and
you.
you can pour for me.
Right.
That's right. The point is you don't pour your own. And the Mishnah hints at that by saying Mazgulo kos sheni. Right. So we've poured out the second cup for one another. Says the Mishnah, V'kan, and here at this point, Haben sho'el et aviv. The son asks his father. V'me'ein da'at baben, and if the child has insufficient understanding, maybe too young, or something wrong with him, Nebuch, aviv melamdo, the father
Teaches him.
has to teach him. And he says like this. This is the Mishnah. Mah Nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halaylot. Which means,
Why is this night different from all other nights?
no, it does not mean that. That is a bad translation. David, how would you translate to English
What?
Mah Nishtana halayla hazeh?
What is the difference?
How is this night?
Different.
How has this night become different? It's a passive form. Nishtana.
This night.
Yeah, that's a better translation. That's a better translation. What has changed on this night? As opposed to, how would you say in Hebrew, why is this night different?
Like
למה הלילה הזה שונה?
Lama leil azeh shoneh, or ech alayla azeh shoneh. It's a different language. Subtle, but different. We have always translated it as, why is this night different from all other nights? But it's not an accurate translation. And if we get time, I will come back to a reason for this slightly different language from what we think it means. So just put it to the side for the minute. I hope we'll have time for it, but knowing us, we won't have. And I'll have to do it as an extra at some other point. But just to point out that Mah Nishtana halayla hazeh means what has changed about this night, I think would be a good translation. What about this night is different as opposed to how did we normally translate it? Why is this night different? Okay. Now, and then we go to the questions. These are the questions in the Mishnah. Shebechol haleilot, on all nights, anu ochlin chametz u'matzah. We eat chametz and matzah. In Hebrew, and can also mean or, right? Because it doesn't mean that every night we eat chametz and matzah. It means we can eat, if we want, chametz or matzah. Okay? Halayla hazeh kulo matzah. We only eat matzah on this night. That sound familiar to you? Yes, that's the same as our first question, right? No problems there so far. Next one. I'm in the Mishnah, remember. You're in your Haggadah, so follow in your Haggadah. Shebechol haleilot anu ochlin sha'ar yirakot. On all other nights, on all nights, we eat sha'ar yirakot. What's that mean?
different. All kinds of vegetables. All.
Not doesn't mean all. All vegetables would be kol ha'yirakot.
Sha'ar means the gate.
Sha'ar with an ayin means a gate. Sha'ar means other vegetables. In other words, anything you want. But again, the lashon is not quite as we translate it, but it is the same that we've got in our Haggadah. Halayla hazeh maror. On this night, we eat bitter herbs. Same as the Haggadah? Yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it says kulo mara. You've got kulo mara.
Yeah, I've heard
That's not true. You can't say kulo mara. We don't only eat maror. And you can say kulo matzah. We only eat matzah as opposed to chametz. We don't only eat bitter herbs. We eat other herbs. We eat kalpas for a start. Okay, we must eat bitter herbs. Again, not an accurate translation, but the meaning is correct. I don't agree with that kulo maror, Lionel. Is that layman?
In brackets.
Oh, in brackets. Okay. Well, I wonder why he's put that in, because we do not only eat maror, do we? Maybe there was a minhag in layman's area, probably somewhere in northern Gateshead, before Gateshead, Germany, probably. That they only ate maror on Pesach and didn't eat. Exactly. I'm thinking what they're going to do about that. Yeah, it's problematic, that kulo.
Yeah, how do you accommodate the kalpas?
Yeah, I don't think that's right, kulo. Anyway, let's move on. Third one in the Mishnah. Shebechol haleilot anu ochlin basar tzali shaluk umavushal. On all nights we eat roasted meat, shaluk, which is I don't know, some kind of cooking, slow stewed meat, slow cooking meat. Umavushal, that is boiled in water. Halayla has there.
This night.
Kulo tzali. We only eat roast meat. That sound familiar to you?
No.
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 Okay. All right.
We don't eat roast
hang
meat.
on a minute. We don't eat roast meat. Okay. Oh, Lionel, you say it's such a spoil sport. You're jumping my gun all the time. So, does that sound familiar to you? No, it does not. It does not sound familiar to you because it is not in your Mah Nishtana. That is in your Haggadah. And we will discuss that in a minute. Let's just finish the fourth one first. Shebechol haleilot. Now, listen to this. This is going to surprise you. On all nights, anu matbilin, we dip in pam echat, once. Halayla hazeh,
This one.
on this night, shtei peamim, twice. Only you to answer this, Philip, without looking inside. Does that sound familiar to you?
No.
Yes.
No.
No, wait, I'm asking Philip.
I have to connect it with something else.
Why is that not familiar to you?
Because usually I drink about five. I dip in about 5 times.
Paul.
You need not dip even.
Okay, so our girsa, our version is different. Our version says, Leslie, please read it for us. We ain anu matbilin. We do not dip in even once. So the Mishnah says every night we dip once, but tonight we dip twice. What's going on here? Oh, good question, Barbara. Okay, so we have a Mah Nishtana that you're not familiar with, unless you've learned the Gemara, right? Now, that was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it? For those who have Oh, thank you. It's woken up. So that was a bit of a surprise for those of you who haven't learned Mishnah's Pesachim, because if we were going to have a Mah Nishtana, which came from the Mishnah, you'd expect it to be faithful to the Mishnah. Now, let's break it down. First two we're okay with. Matzah and maror. We're okay with those. Let's go to the third one. The third one says, on all other nights, we can eat our meat roasted, cooked, or boiled. But tonight, we eat only roast meat. Lionel, why is that in the Mishnah and not in our Mah Nishtana? Okay, the Mishnah is referring to the time of the Bet Mikdash. Now, this is a bit strange. Why is that strange? Because the Mishnah was written after the destruction of the temple. When was the Mishnah written?
Which was written in the 3rd century.
200 and something.
200-ish.
3rd century.
200. And when was the temple destroyed?
70.
70. So the Mishnah is written 130 years after the temple is destroyed. Huh? It was written then, that's right. Okay, but, Lionel, let me ask you this question. Why did Rabbi Yehuda Nossi write down the Mishnah?
So it wouldn't get lost. So
Because,
that we know what to do when the temple, the third temple.
but you're not allowed to write it down. The oral Torah was meant to be oral. It was not meant to be written down. Why did he write it down, Hannah?
Israel, so that wouldn't be lost.
So it wouldn't get forgotten, right? So if he's writing it so it wouldn't get forgotten, who is he writing it for? Future generations. So why is he writing about what we don't do? Why is he writing in? Ah, there we go. Okay, so he's written it because he has tremendous faith that the Bet Mikdash is going to be rebuilt very soon, or at least sometime in the future, and people are going to need to know what to do, right? So Rabbi Yehuda Nassi's version of the Mah Nishtana refers back to the time of the Bet Mikdash, even though it was written after the destruction of the Bet Mikdash. Because on a Seder night, what did they eat?
Korban Pesach.
The Korban Pesach. How was the Korban Pesach cooked?
Roasted.
They had a bride.
Roasted.
Braised.
Roasted.
A bride.
They had a braai. That's
What's the
right.
difference between the braai and braised?
Braised is in water.
No, braised is not in water. Braised
Yes, it is.
Braised is
It
that.
is.
Braised is in,
Oh, yes.
yeah. It was dafka, not braised. The Torah tells us very
It
clearly
was roasted.
it has to be roasted on an open
Open
fire,
fire.
Braised was roasted.
right? Tzli ish. It has to be. It was a mangal. It was a barbecue. It was a barbecue, a braai, as Hannah has said. Yeah,
Even though she's Australian.
No brine.
that's that South African word,
It
braai.
is.
Yeah.
Australians
Yeah.
say barbecue.
Yeah. Barbie, a Barbie.
Yeah,
The Australians say a Barbie. Yeah. So this was a Barbie, right? So when he says we eat our meat roasted, that is referring to the Korban Pesach. What else did they eat on at Seder night?
Bits of herbs.
The Korban Chagiga, a different Korban, the Korban Chagiga, which was the festive Korban. Now, how much of the Korban Pesach did you have to eat?
All of it.
No, you didn't have to eat all of it,
I
Hannah.
had to all be eaten.
That's a different question. I never asked that. I asked how much. You've got to listen very carefully to the question. How much did you, singular, have to eat? Everyone's a wise guy, isn't he?
Pizza.
Huh?
Pizza.
As Lionel says, a kibetza. How much is a kibetza? An egg size. Any other offers? That's not correct. How much did you have to eat?
Braised.
Oh, Goldie's clicking again.
Braised.
A kazayit. A kazayit is the minimum that you had to eat. How much is a kazayit?
In Scotland, they thought it was like a potato or even bigger.
Okay, yeah. How much is a kazayit? The size of an olive. How big is it?
Yeah.
How big is an olive? Right. Okay, that is another shiur in itself. An olive, amazingly, is the size of
An egg.
Bigger than we think.
an olive. Right? It's not bigger than we think it is. And they thought it was bigger than they think it is because they didn't have olives in Northern Europe and they didn't know how big it was. So they worked it out from the Gemara. But actually, if you look at I'm not going to go into this. There's a whole shiur on its own, which I can send you out if you like, because I've done it a few times. But the Sefardim, in all the Sefardi Mefarshim, do not mention the how much a kazayit is. There's no discussion about how big a kazayit is amongst the Sefardim. Why? Because they could go outside and look at how big an olive is, right? The ashkenazi mefarshim, especially the Northern European ones, who had never seen an olive in their life, had to work it out from first principles. And it's all very, very complicated. The maths, yes, please. The maths is complicated, and they end up with olives the size of footballs. Right, which is why there are those ridiculous chart things that you have to eat 1 1/3 machine-baked matzah. Have you ever seen an olive the size of that? Anyway, another story. An olive, take it from me, an olive is an olive. So how much have you singular got to eat of the Korban Pesach? An olive size. You can eat more if you want. But you're only, about 30, 36 grams. Not very much at all, right? You wouldn't get very satisfied on that. What did they? Now, remember that Korban Pesach was to go around the whole family and potentially many other families as well who all came together to eat it. So actually, most people did not eat much of the Korban Pesach because it was shared out. So what did you feast on? No, you said it before. The Chagiga. What does Chagiga mean? Festival. So you feasted on the festival offering. This was another Korban that was brought and that is what you ate. It was another animal. Yeah. Now, we actually have a zecher. We have a reminder, a remembrance of the Korban Chagiga on our Seder plate. What is it?
Backbone.
The egg. The egg, the roasted egg, is a symbol and a reminder of the Korban Chagiga. Yeah, it's a zecher Korban Chagiga. So it may not be true in what the Mishnah says. Thank you, Baruch atah Adonai le'olam.
Hey,
It may not be true what the Mishnah says. Halayla hazeh kulo tsali. All the meat that you ate had to be roasted, because the Korban Chagiga did not have to be roasted. The Korban Chagiga, it went up on the Mizbeach, so it probably was roasted, but it wasn't the halacha like the Korban Pesach. If you cook your Korban Pesach in water or braise it, as Philip wanted to do, you have not fulfilled your mitzvah. It has to be roasted. So the kulo might be a bit of a problem. Anyway, we don't have that in our version. Why don't we have that in our version? If Rabbi Yehuda Nossi thought that it needed to go in because we might forget it, why did our version change?
Because we're explaining to our children now.
Right, good.
Because
He said because we're trying to teach our children and grandchildren now, and that would be that's coming. There's another question coming up in a minute, but bearing in mind this is meant to be children asking about what's different on this night. Now, as Barbara has said, we ashkenazim do not eat roast meat on Seder night. Dafka don't eat roast meat on Seder night.
Dafka.
Anybody here
To bother with that.
Anybody here have that minhag like Barbara and I? Dafka not to eat roast meat on Pesach.
Privately so do I.
Huh?
Privately so do I.
To irritate
So do you.
the-
Okay. But you might not have come from the same place. I don't know. You might have had different minhagim. What about you, Warren? You have roast meat?
Never been in the kitchen, so I don't know how it's called.
Fair question. I think I ought to give that answer for the benefit of the recording. I asked Warren if he only eats roast meat on Seder night, and he says he's no idea because he doesn't go in the kitchen.
Otherwise, it's like the same as every other night.
Yeah. What about you, Frank? You don't dafka, or you just don't?
Well, the fact is we don't, because that's how it's always been. So presumably somewhere back there.
Somewhere back in there. Okay. Leslie, you the same? Same. You any idea why we don't eat dafka? Don't eat roast meat?
I assume it's something to do with the temple. That's what I assume.
It is something to do with temple. Go on, see if you can work it out.
Because we haven't got the temple.
Yes, go on. Good.
And they used to have roast meat. I assume, therefore, we would not have the roast meat until we have the temple.
Yes, almost exactly correct. Because the reason that Ashkenazim don't have roast meat on Seder, Dafka don't have roast meat on Seder night, is because there is a halacha that says without a Bet Mikdash, you cannot bring a korban, right? You can't just put up a mizbeach in your back garden and bring a korban. Somebody watching in, as it were, or sitting by, somebody comes to your Seder, Leslie, and you bring out this beautiful roast lamb, he might think that this is a Korban Pesach. And he might then go next year and think, well, I'm going to do my own Seder this year. I was at Leslie's last year and he had a Korban Pesach. So I better make a Korban Pesach and I'll do my own Korban Pesach outside. So it is Dafka. We do not eat roast meat on Seder night, so that we don't get mixed up and think that we're allowed to have a Korban Pesach outside of the Bet HaMikdash. 1 second, Barbara. Yes, Lionel. Well, that's a very good question, and I think you'll have to ask them. Lionel asks, what about those people who go on Temple Mount, Erev Pesach, and shechter a lamb? What do they do with it? Well, they shouldn't be, in my view, for a number of reasons, but we'll not get into the political reasons for it. But I don't think they should be doing that for exactly the reason that Ashkenazim don't eat roast meat. We're not allowed to have a Korban Pesach without a Bet Mikdash. So they need to go and build the Bet Mikdash, which is another question. Should we have built another Bet Mikdash right now? That's another question I'm not going to get into. But once we've built it, and it's fully functioning, then you can have your Korban Pesach. Until then, you're not allowed a Korban Pesach. And that's why Ashkenazi. 1 second, Jackie. Barbara first, but just before Barbara, Sefardim do not hold of that. That was your question. What about Sefardim? Sefardim don't hold of that. Sefardim do have...
We have
Roast lamb.
Huh?
They're barbecue.
I go to my in-laws.
Yeah.
And there's Fardim, and they have roast lamb.
Yeah, they dafka have roast lamb. They have roast... Yeah, they dafka have roast lamb, unless they live in Israel, because it's too expensive. Anybody bought lamb here? It's a fortune, lamb here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more expensive here. You know why it's so expensive here? Because there isn't enough grazing land for so that's important. Anyway, so the Sefardim do have roast lamb, and almost dafka have roast lamb, because they have it as a zeicher lemikdash. They are sensible enough not to be confused by the fact that they have roast lamb, and the thinking they say, don't be ridiculous. Of course, we're not think that this is a Korban Pesach. This is a zeicher. Which is why when I said the about the egg, you'll notice that David straight away said zeicher lekorban chagiga, because it's a zeicher. It's not the Korban chagiga. It's a zeicher lekorban chagiga. What else do we do as a zeicher on Seder night?
Zecher lemikdash kehillel.
Zeicher lemikdash kehillel. Right? We make the sandwich.
Said it was you who said it.
Philip, got something like the clock that's right twice a day that stops, right? Every now and again, Philip will get something right. Zeicher lemikdash kehillel. We have the sandwich, right? We have the laffa, the shawarma and laffa. That was Hillel's thing, and we have a zeicher, our ridiculous crackers with a bit of pathetic charosis in it. It doesn't come anywhere near to the shawarma that Hillel ate. However, that is a zeicher lemikdash Hillel. So the Sefardim do have roast meat. How did we get onto that? Because of the third of the Mah Nishtana questions, right? So I ask that question again, Barbara. Why have our Megillah, I keep saying Megillah, our Haggadah have a different, doesn't have that, whereas Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's did? I think Jackie answered it. We have to worry about our future generations. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was basically was telling us to remember what went on in the Bet Mikdash. Now, there's another reason, a very practical reason why we can change that into our Mah Nishtana for future generations, because it doesn't make sense to say that a child should ask something which is not there, right? The other reason, very simple reason, is that we know what went on in the Bet Mikdash because Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote it down for us. We've got the Mishnah and the Gemara, right? So by the time that our Haggadah was written, which was after the time of the Mishnah and after the time of the Gemara, our Haggadah evolved over a long period of time. By the time it got fixed to what we have now, we already had the Mishnah and the Gemara to refer back to. So we didn't need to refer back to it so that we wouldn't forget it. We could look it up in the Mishnah and the Gemara. So we're more interested in being accurate and having 4 questions for the children to ask. And therefore, our Mah Nishtana does not contain the roast meat question. Yes, Hannah?
There's another possible reason or influence why Ashkenazim don't think is that there wasn't a culture of barbecues in Northern Europe.
Possibly,
And
possibly,
it's winter.
possibly.
It's winter and it's cold.
Possibly, yeah,
So-
maybe, and maybe. I mean, certainly, when it comes to carapace, if we ever get that far, we'll talk. Yeah, the different places had different things. Yes, Frank.
Because the matzah, the maror, the charusit are all like the hors d'oeuvre to the meal. The symbols that we're bringing what happened do not form I would say an integral part of the meal. It's the introduction. And I could totally understand, therefore, saying we're not going to have a bit of roasted meat on the matzah as a third thing to symbolise the roasted meat there. But when you then come on to the main meal where you're eating for your sustenance and because you're having a Yom Tov meal, I can't follow it through necessarily see why we wouldn't have it then.
Why we wouldn't have roast meat?
Yeah.
Because
I can understand why you don't have it as a separate.
yeah, no, literally for the reason that I said that the Ashkenazim are worried because they are a worrisome sort of bunch, right? If there's something to worry about, even if there isn't something to worry about, they'll find something to worry about, right? They're worried that an error will occur and next year you'll make Korban Pesach. It's as simple as that. That is without a doubt. I mean, that is the source of the minhag, and it is a very strong minhag. Paul knew it. Barbara had it. I certainly learnt it when I was a very small child. Lionel, you learned that in Cheder as well. Yeah, it's a very well-known minhag, and that is the reason for it. I'm not saying that I think it's a very good reason, and I wish I was Sefardi. By the way, the other thing about the Sefardim, just on this, whilst we're talking about lamb, we have a Seder plate, don't we, with something called a zeroah,
Yeah.
right? A zeroah, which means, what does the word zeroah mean?
Strong arm.
It means arm. Yeah, arm. And why do we have a zeroah on the Seder plate?
To remind us of the Korban
Reminders of the Korban Pesach. Possibly. I think Zroa Natuya, the outstretched arm of God. Maybe it's partly that as well. What do we Ashkenazim put on our Seder plate for the Zroa?
A shank bone.
Okay, let's ask Jackie. What did you have, Jackie, on your Seder
Shank
plate?
bone. A shank bone.
A shank bone. What's a shank bone, please?
The leg
You're
of
a
the
butcher.
lamb.
Tell me what's a shank bone.
It's the leg of the lamb without the meat.
Any Ashkenazim here have a leg of lamb on the Seder plate? Now, you're not a proper Ashkenazi.
Not a proper ashkenazi.
Okay, so Leslie and Jackie had a lamb shank bone on their Seder plate. What did you have, Barbara?
I used to have that.
You had a lamb shank bone? Frank, what did you have? A fligel. You had okay, wait. We have to, wait. We have to go around the table here. This is really interesting. Right, Barbara, I'm talking about in your childhood, not when you were married to okay, Barbara had a shank bone. Frank had a fligel. What did you have? Wait. You had? Okay, no, Frank had a neck, had a chicken neck.
Yeah, a gorgle. That's what we
Yeah,
had. We had a gorgle. We had a gorgle. A neck bone. A gorgle.
Philip
A
don't
neck
remember
bone.
anything. Lionel? A chicken what? Yeah, and if you couldn't find a shank bone,
Well, it's huge. How can you put
another
it
a bit of the chicken, right? Okay, so Lionel tried to find a
Chicken
shank bone,
neck.
but couldn't find one, and used a bit of chicken. Paul, as a kid, a neck. Paul had a gorgle,
We had a neck too.
Yeah,
a proper shank bone from a
No.
lamb. Right, so Warren doesn't know because he never went in the kitchen. David, what did you have as a kid?
We had a neck, the neck of the chicken.
You need to add the muffins.
Okay, so David had something from a chicken as well. Right, David, what did you have?
Neck of a chicken.
A neck. Okay, neck seems to be very popular.
A gorgle. Yep.
Who's else? Goldie, what did you have? Oh, she's muted. Neville, what did you have? What do you have on your Seder plate for Zroa?
No.
You're muted, Neville.
Are we muted?
No.
Not broken, don't.
Okay, we can't hear him. Jeff,
We had neck. The neck of a chicken.
neck
Neck.
of a chicken is
Yeah.
very popular. Jeff,
Gorgo.
Neck. Neck.
neck,
Gorgo.
Weitzman's.
Yeah, we had that.
Okay,
Chicken
so
neck.
it seems that most people had the neck of a chicken. Right?
Johnny, can I
Chicken.
tell you why?
I'm gonna suggest why I think you all had the neck of the chicken. We did not have the neck of a chicken.
We had the coccyx of a chicken.
We had in my house, we had, like Hannah, we had the fligel. We had the wing of a chicken. Right? Now, if you were to go to a Sefardi Seder and put a pathetic little fligel or an even more pathetic little neck of a chicken on their throat, they'd laugh at you. What do they have? What do the Sephardim have? They have a real big gazunta leg of lamb, right? Because that was the Zerah. I'm amazed that you had a shank bone. I'm not so amazed that Jackie had one because he was a butcher. So he probably could get hold of one. We certain. Why do you think that those of you who used a neck, why did you use a neck when it says you should have a shank bone? Because it was available and shank bones were not so available. And why else? Why
Maybe it's
else?
the same shape.
No, it isn't.
Because you could roast it easily.
Because nobody wants to eat it.
Not true. I love the Gorgo.
Well, yeah, I knew there'd be somebody that would say that. But generally speaking, you were talking about families who had one chicken. I remember my grandmother telling me this, and that's not that long ago. One chicken between 11 people, right? You couldn't afford to take a fligel. Right, no, right. But you couldn't afford to take a decent chunk of the chicken and put that on the Seder plate not to be eaten because you don't eat the Zerah, because maybe this is why Lionel is right, that it is the Zeicha, the Korban Pesach, because you don't eat it because, you know, if you think it might be, like, again, ashkenazi worried, we've got to eat the Korban Pesach here, and you're not allowed. So you wouldn't use a bit of a chicken which was valuable for somebody to eat. But the neck, you know, we were obviously dead wealthy because we had a fligel, you know. But you know, that was definitely a practical reason. The same way as with carapace. Carapace is meant to be green vegetable, right?
And usually it's potatoes.
Well, if you came from Eastern Europe, it was potatoes. We, as kids, had parsley, right? Yeah. Now, in Eastern Europe, in the early spring, you were unlikely to find parsley, I would have thought, but you would find plentiful potatoes. Right. So Eastern European Jews tended to have potatoes. Yeah, because that was something that was very familiar. Yes, Jackie?
Right. As a butcher, I'm just telling you now, during Pesach week or 2 weeks before Pesach, every Sephardi family wanted two shoulders of lamb. We couldn't get enough. We used to take the bones out of the ones for shvama and kept those. That's why some people got a shank bone. And for other people, because they had electricity and they couldn't burn a shank bone, we would burn a chicken neck because it looked similar to a shank bone.
Oh, so it is the same shape as a shank bone, is it? Is a chicken neck the same shape as a shank bone? Yeah. I would have thought a shank bone was straight, no?
You said so before.
So a chicken neck is straight.
No, chicken
neck's not straight.
No, when it's cooked, it's not straight. But when it's not cooked,
believe me, it's the same.
Okay, maybe that. Okay, I stand corrected then. If that's maybe that's a reason. Okay, all right. Anyway, all very fascinating. I can see we've got Sue Bendahan here. Sue, can you unmute and tell us what your Sefardi family have on their Seder plate for Zeroah?
We have a shank bone.
Way! Good old Sefardim have a shank bone. Very good. Excellent.
But not in Manchester.
No, not in Manchester. No, you wouldn't have had that in Manchester. And what would your husband and his family say if you put a pathetic little fligel or a chicken neck out instead of a shank bone?
Shlomo, what would they have said? They would have thrown us out the house.
There you go. Then I got thrown out of the house. That's what Sue said. Sue is married. Sue was in my class, by the way, at Jewish Day School 60 years ago. And it's very nice to have her with us. She's married to Sefardi and he now lives here in Israel. Okay, right. So let's, what's the time, everyone? Oh, gosh, look at the time. Doesn't time fly when we're enjoying ourselves? Right, we've got to do the fourth question now. The fourth question,
What do
we had in the Mishnah, if you remember, I'll read it to you again. Shebechol haleilot, on all nights, anu matbilim pa'am echat. We dip in once. Halayla hazeh shtei pa'amim.
Ein anu matbilim afilu pa'am echat. Also.
It's not what it says in the Mishnah.
Not in the Mishnah.
Well, you pay attention, Philip, here.
You want to come?
So, what is the Mishnah talking about here? We dip in once.
20 minutes? How much fine?
I doubt they'll have challah or bread on Seder night, right? But I knew what you meant. Okay, yes, you're right. Shebechol haleilot anu matbilim pa'am achat. On all nights, yes, you're right. Stand corrected. On all nights, we dip in once. Now, it could be that they are referring to the challah in the salt. That's what I thought too. But it's not what the Gemara thought. Okay, I'm going to show you the Gemara now. The Gemara in Psachim, when it's discussing this part of the Mishnah, says as follows. We've learned in the Mishnah, Mah Nishtana halayla hazeh mikol haleilot, shebechol haleilot anu matbilim pa'am achat, halayla hazeh matbilim shtei pa'amim. So the Gemara quotes the Mishnah and then says, Matkifla Rava. Rava asks a question. He says, Atu kol yoma lo sagya de lo matbila chada zimna. What are you talking about? On every other night, we don't dip in at all. Yeah, well, that's what we've got in our Gemara. I'm trying to explain to you in our Haggadah. I'm explaining to you now how we got to that because the Mishnah doesn't say that. Rava says the Mishnah's wrong. Rava in the Gemara says, "What are you talking about? We don't dip in once every night. We don't dip in at all." He says, "But v'chi b'chol yom i'efshar sheyolat bil adam afilu pa'am achat." We don't have to dip in. He says we don't have to dip in.
Can't be salt because salt's only on Shabbat.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
So he says, Rava goes on and says, Ela Amar Rava, Haki Katani. He says, you got it wrong. This is how the Mishnah should be. So Rava is questioning, Rava in the Gemara is questioning Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and he says, this is how it should be. Shebechol haleilot ein anu chayavin letabel afilu pam achat. We are not obliged to dip in even once. You can if you want. If you have a fan, if you've got pina and hummus there and you've got bread and you want to dip it in or whatever, you've got a vegetable, you can, but you're not obliged to dip in, he says. Halayla hazeh shtei pa'amim. We're obliged to dip in twice. What are the twice? Karpas in salt water, and the second one, maror in charoset. Yes. Okay. So now then, they have a whole. How do you do here in the Gemara? Because the Gemara doesn't just accept Rava's opinion. Matkifla Rav Safra. Rav Safra comes along and he says, "Minusach zeh mashma shebelela seder anu chayavim letaber shtei pe'amot." He says, "What are you talking about? You tell me we are obliged to dip in twice," says Rav Safra. Chiyuvei ledardekei. He says, "What about v'chi tibul rishon sheosim kehekel letinokot nechshav chiyuv?" That first dipping, which is, he says, what's all that about? Why do we dip in karpas? What is the point of dipping karpas in salt water?
Yeah, sure.
You can do anything you want to get the children to ask. And we're not going to get to it today, but I think Mah Nishtana is going to go on to next week. But there's a whole load of things we could do to get the children to ask. It says Rav Safra, you don't have to dip in twice. That's just one of the things you might want to do. It's not a chiyuv, it's not an obligation, said Rav Safra. Ela Rama Safra. What does Rav Safra? He's got a different version altogether. Rav Safra says, listen to him. He says, Shebechol haleilot, ein anu matbilim afilu pam echat. We do not dip in even once. Halayla hazeh shtei pa'amim. He doesn't say it's an obligation. He says we do it, but it doesn't say we're obliged. So his version agrees that the Mishnah is wrong when the Mishnah says we dip in once every night, but he doesn't agree with Rava, who says it's an obligation. So his version, if you like, is a middle ground, and that's the version that our Haggadot, thank you. I've got a real problem with that word tonight. Our Haggadot has adopted. So if you want to be really clever this Seder night, ask your guests whose version of this question is this from the Gemara? And you'll be able to say, it's Rav Safra. And you'll be able to tell them all about how it got to be in our Mah Nishtana. Okay, because the version in the Mishnah is different. You can also tell them about the roast meat that we don't have. So we've only got three of the 4 questions from the Mishnah, but we've still got 4 questions, haven't we? So next question, the 2 questions that arise from that is, what's the one that we add in? 3 questions. Why have we added it in? And why do we need 4? Why don't we just have 3 and say, miss out the roasted one because it's the roasted meat one doesn't apply to us? Why do we need 4 questions? Who says it has to be 4?
Because you've got 4 sons.
4 sons, 4 kosot.
Got the symmetry of the 4 with on 4 occasions you've got the 4 fours.
Yeah.
4, whoa, that's too many 4s, Maria. Tell he's an accountant, can't you? 4 what? You've got 4 occasions, you've got 4s. 4 cups. Yeah.
4 expressions of redemption.
4 expressions of redemption. I'm questioning that because you've got 5 of those. Right, go on.
That comes back to this.
Right, yeah. Next, what's the next one?
You've got 4 questions.
No, you can't. 4 sons, right? So we've got 3 lots of 4. And so Frank wants to say, to make it nice and symmetrical, we have to have 4 questions. 5 what? Go on, what's the 5th question? Why is this night different from all others? So that's a general question. Okay, Lionel says that actually we've got 5 questions because the first statement is a question. Mah Nishtana alayla is question 1. Shebechol haleilot matzomora, that's question 2. That's very good, Lionel. I'd never thought of that. Okay, so right now what you're going to do? You come back to the 5 expressions of Geula. Yeah.
They say there was a 5th son.
Yeah.
Who was the son that
wasn't there? Yeah. Okay.
You've got 5 glasses of wine because you've got. And then there are 4 other expressions I've got here.
If you take Lionel's,
The 5th son was on Miluim.
Take Lionel's definition. It's one question
and 4 sub-questions. 4 aspects of the same question.
Questions. Why is that different? Because this we do this, we do this, we do this.
Okay, so really there's only 1 question. Okay. Right. Okay. So that just shows you that how much there is to talk about. Okay. So we've looked at the Mishnah and we've seen that our Haggadah is different to the Mishnah. We've explained why our Haggadah is different in certain aspects. And those are very important aspects. But I want to just spend a minute or 2 speaking about our ability to adapt the Seder from that which the Mishnah said. And those of you who heard or were present or heard afterwards the shiur that I gave last week on the halacha changing and the minhagim changing and the fact that people have different minhagim. I think this
That's time related.
it sits well with this, because my entire thesis on this is that as time changes, minhagim and the way we do things should change with the times, on the basis that if we don't, they won't make any sense. So, for example, for a child to ask the third question here in the Mishnah about the roasted meat today wouldn't make any sense. And so the Baal Haggadah, whoever it was that put the Haggadah together, changed it because it didn't make any sense. And so therefore you have a good example of a minhag changing. Not only just a minhag which is written down in the Mishnah. And remember, what we've said is that one of the problems with writing down the Mishnah was that it became fixed. Once it's written, it's fixed. But this is proof that actually it needn't become fixed, because this was changed as a result of it not making any sense. Now, I've got another question for you, which about the Mah Nishtana, which I think is similar to this, although maybe it's the other side of the coin. We have the 4 questions which are asked by the children immediately after Karpas, correct? Is that right? Or we've done Yachatz, I think, by then. Yeah, we've done Yachatz as well. We've broken the matzah. Okay, what are the questions that the children ask? Tonight, we don't eat any bread. Matzah. How do they know they're not getting bread at the meal? We've not had the meal yet. Number 2, we eating bitter herbs. Have we eaten bitter herbs? We haven't eaten them. How do they know we're going to eat bitter herbs? Why are they asking about bitter herbs? Question 3 for us. Dipping in. We dip in twice. How many dips have they seen at this point?
No.
1. They've seen Karpas.
Oh, yeah, Karpas.
Right? So that's not a sensible question. And question 4, leaning. Okay. Oh, I never answered the question why we had the extra one. Well, we need 4 for symmetry. And so for the leaning one seems to be a good one to put in, because that reflects freedom.
It's not in the Mishnah.
That's not in the Mishnah at all. Not in the Mishnah at all. That's not to say that they didn't lean. They did lean. How do we know that they leaned? We know that from last week's Shiur. What were the rabbis in Bnei Brak doing? Leaning. Okay, so we do know that they leaned, but it wasn't one of the questions. And maybe that's why the Baal Haggadah put the leaning question in to make up the 4. Okay, so have we seen leaning? Has the child seen leaning at this point? Yes, he has. He's seen it for Kiddush. Okay, Karpas, machlokas, whether we lean for Karpas. Some say we do lean for Karpas because it is a sign of freedom. Why is it a sign of freedom? Because it's an appetizer, right? Not that a piece of potato dipped in salt water is particularly appetizing, but it's the idea is that it's an appetizer. Those that say we don't lean for Karpas, let's take a vote round the table. In your family Seder, Barbara, as a child, did you lean for Karpas? You can't remember. Frank?
I think so.
Frank
No.
thinks so. Hannah?
No.
Can't remember. Philip?
No.
Jackie,
did you lean for Karpas?
Yes.
Yes, you
definitely,
leaned for Karpas.
definitely.
Lionel?
No.
No? Lionel's horrified at the thought. Horrified at the thought we should lean. Paul? No?
Didn't say so in the Haggadah.
Didn't say so in the Haggadah. Okay. David, did you lean for Karpas?
No.
Okay. So
No.
those. What about you on the Zoom? What about you, David?
No.
No. No.
No. Okay. Most
No.
people here, it seems, did not lean for Karpas. Why? Because of the salt water. What does the salt water represent?
Makes you sit straight.
What does the salt water represent?
Hard work, the labor, the hard
The labor,
work.
the tears of the Bnei Israel. So what? So it's not a sign of freedom. So on the one hand, the Karpas is a sign of freedom because it's an appetizer, and only posh people have appetizers, and it's a sign of freedom. And on the other hand, it's tears, it's salt water, so you don't lean. So that's part of the question. The whole of the Karpas thing to get the children asking. If you've got a child who is, a bright kid, he's going to think, hang on, what's going on here? This is a sign of freedom. But on the other hand, it's a sign of slavery. What's going on here? That's a bit strange, Father. Why are we doing all this stuff? So it is to get the children to ask. How did we get onto that? But yes, that's right. So the whole point of this man, my question is, this Mah Nishtana makes no sense because the children have not yet seen half the stuff that they're asking about.
It's been told.
It's a bit like learning.
But it's a preamble.
They learn from the facts.
Okay.
Now you're looking at the commentary on
Right.
the facts.
Frank says they know what's coming. Well, if they know what's coming,
The reason behind it.
okay, wait a minute. How do they know what's coming?
They went to Cheder.
They went to Cheder
They learned about
and they went and they saw it last year.
Yeah.
Well, if they went to Cheder and they saw it last year, they know the answers as well. So I don't buy that. I don't think. Oh, that's not that. You're not a child, Frank.
Spontaneous questions. though.
They're not spontaneous questions, correct? But they're meant to be spontaneous questions. They're meant to be questions that the children ask. So that you're right that is the answer that many people give, that they have learned these things and they want to know more about it. They're the chacham who wants to know all about it. But I'm not buying that at all. I think there's a completely different reason why we have that.
Also, the 3-year-old grandson in kindergarten,
Yeah.
in a Haredi kindergarten,
Yeah.
and they learn that they're going to have matzah, and they
But they don't know why they have matzah.
No, they
Or
don't.
they just know that they have matzah.
They're going to have matzah.
I'm not buying that. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you're right, but I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that the Mah Nishtana is sensible where it is. Who can give me a different suggestion?
Isn't it something to do with the 4 sons?
Well, I'll tell you what I think, and I've never read this anywhere. So I've got 4 minutes left, so if I say it slow enough, there won't be time for you to shoot me down in flames. I'll tell you what I think, and it goes back to what I was telling you before about Rav Safra in the Gemara and our Baal Haggadah who changed the Haggadah. I think that initially the meal was much earlier than it is today. And as Paul remembers, I can tell from his face, we have changed the order of our Seder. Heresy, okay? Look at Arnold's face. In our house, we have the meal almost at the beginning. Because I think that that's where it used to be. And I think that the reason that the Mah Nishtana is where it is because it's the kids that say it. And if you wait until after the meal,
They'll be too tired.
they'll be asleep and they won't ask these things. So the whole thing is child oriented. So we bring these questions early on so that they can have their time in the spotlight on the chair. Remember that when you were a kid? I hated it. I hated it. They made me stand on a chair. I was always the youngest because I was the youngest in the family, right? They made me stand on a chair and everybody was looking at me and I had to say it in Yiddish as well. I had to say it in Yiddish. Okay.
Which is why is it involved that Mah Nishtana has to be said by a child in the first place? Anybody can be standing up and can give the leading questions and then say,
Because the mitzvah is v'higada talavincha. You have to tell your child. So in order to tell your child, you've got to get the child to ask the questions.
Rabbi Sachs said initially it was the father who asked the questions.
Yes.
And it then got changed.
Yes, because the child himself, the father asked the questions initially because the child couldn't ask them, didn't know enough.
The pre-temple times, it was the father.
Yeah,
But also,
maybe.
It goes to what we did last week, that they were discussing and arguing till morning. So if they were discussing and arguing,
Kids are asleep.
No, they must have eaten earlier.
Yeah. So I think that the original way this Seder was done, I think the original way the Seder was done was around the meal. Not going to say around the table, but of course they didn't sit at tables. They all lay around on chairs long. But I think the whole Seder was done as part of the meal situation. And that is how we reenact our Seder in our house.
Nothing written down to substantiate your saying.
Nothing whatsoever.
Pure conjecture.
Pure conjecture
It
and
does-
logic.
It does make us say that.
No,
That's
the
happy
only
at play.
I'll tell you, it took me a good number of years before I persuaded my wife that we would try it. She was very, very reluctant to try it. And having done it now for a good few years, my kids, my married kids, my old kids, obviously the grandchildren, they don't know any better because they're only young. But my kids have said there's no way they're going to do it any other way. And so much so, and I've done it this year, they've asked me to write out a Lieberman family Haggadah of how we do it. And I've actually done it this year. I've written it out. Rena, my daughter, is in the process at the moment, the whole Haggadah. She's in the process at the moment of formatting it and illustrating it. And it is going to be, this year, it will just be version 1, which is basically how we do it, what we do, and some of our little minhagim, like remembering the things that my father used to say every single year and my grandmother used to say every single year. So I've put in, at this point, don't forget to say, for example, when we have our hard-boiled egg, we have to say, in Grandpa's accent, very strong Manchester accent, you know why we have eggs, don't you? Because a Jew is like an egg. The more you boil it, the harder it gets. So that's in my Haggadah, all of those things. Be'ezrat Hashem, before next year, I will have written a commentary based around about it, and I'm going to get all the grandchildren, Be'ezrat Hashem, to do 1 page of illustration, and then when we've completed it, I'm going to actually put it together in a proper book. This year it will just be a pamphlet, but I've written out it because they were all worried that, God forbid, I might die before I've written it all down, and then they won't know how to do it. So we have not completely different, but we do have a different Seder to everybody else.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right, Paul. I have no support for that whatsoever, except I would argue, and I'm going to finish on this point, I would argue that for me, at least, that is the best way of fulfilling the mitzvah of v'higadata lavincha vayom hahu lemor. That is the mitzvah is to teach your children and to give the experience of Yetziat Mitzrayim in the best possible way. And I would argue that the Mishnah, the Gemara that we have learnt today, which does not match the Haggadah that we have, is a precedent that I can rely on for changing things around.
Good. Can I have your glass?
Go.
That's exactly what I do. I follow you now.
Okay, there we go.
And I must
I'm
say,
going to write another
all
book.
my
You've inspired me to
Adam
write another
find
book.
it much better.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
She was reading
Huh?
With Tessa, you follow.
late.
The Seder,
Yeah.
I follow the Seder. Instead of the adults
You
all
used to wait
talking,
till it was
it's
time
stop
to
there,
make kiddish.
have the
But do
meal,
lots
and then
of
the
little
other
things with
takes
the kids before
Beforehand,
we start
yeah.
the Seder an hour before.
Right,
for the
right.
kids to do
Same
the
idea.
bits.
I'm going to stop the recording now.